welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Today, we're going to look at the new Horus Heresy Battle Group. This box is pretty good value, especially when you consider the relatively high points cost of the units in the box. I thought I'd have a look at the new Battle Group box set and talk about how I'd go about turning it into a 3,000 point army for an absolute bargain. I chose the Vilca Fenrica, the 6th Legion, for this army, as I think the new Mark III armor suits the brutality nicely. To spice up the collection of this force, I've done some quick research into 3D printed parts that will supplement the purchases and make the army look wonderfully unique. The theme is around a Deathsworn force that have given into their bloodlust and turned against their lord and master. Some traitor space wolves. I would run them as a traitor force, but there's nothing in the list that forces them to go one way or the other. I'm going to first go through the purchases that I'd grab in addition to the new battle group. Then we'll look at a selection of 3D prints that would supplement the force, and finally, a look at the army list. Amazingly, this 3,000 point list, well, 2,985 points to be specific, with room for a cheeky upgrade or two to suit your tastes. This 3,000 point list only costs $476 US to put together, assuming a 20% discount from third-party suppliers, which, let's be honest, if you're not getting a 10 to 20% discount on your plastic, you're doing it wrong. If you're buying GW retail, stop it now. Purposefully so, this list doesn't require any Forge World purchases to put together, but instead uses 3D printed parts to add flavor and convert particular units. A 3D printer is almost mandatory for a Heresy collector, I've said it before, but if you don't have one, someone in your hobby group or community will. So yes, for under 500 USD, you can have yourself a very competitive 3,000 point list that looks fantastic. While I've focused on the 6th Legion here, this list could easily be adapted for numerous other legions. The newly sized Mark III armor in the new Battle Group box really opens up options for legions that the Mark VI armor just didn't make sense for, whether it be aesthetically or lore-wise. Other great choices include Imperial Fists, Death Guard, Dark Angels, Iron Hands, Wordbearers, you get the idea. Anything that was just looking a little bit awkward in Mark VI. But enough talk. Let's jump into it. We'll start by looking at what you're buying, and I've chosen units that have a strong cost to points ratio. That is, you get some decent points on the table for your dollary dues. So let's look at, there's not many things we need to buy here to get to 3,000 points. The first is, of course, the new Battle Group box set. So what are we getting there? So we're getting 30 Mark III Marines, right to kick us off. This is fantastic. 30 is a great number. 40 is large in the original Dark Age of Boxness. Dark Age of Boxness. There we go. Age of Darkness box set. There we go. Those 40 Mark VI Marines. It was a lot, right? 30 feels like a really good, reasonable number for a single army. They do come with some special weapon upgrades. Now, I'm not sure if it's 10 of each or 5 of each. I can't see it clarified anywhere. It's probably written somewhere. I haven't looked closely enough. I'm assuming it's 10 of each as per the box, but hey, it could be 5 of each. I've assumed 10 in the way I've built this army list, but if it is 5 of each, just pretend I've split the tactical support squad into 2 and given them 2 types of different weapons. So you get the 30 Marines, you get the special weapons, you then get a Derodeo Dreadnought, the new plastic one, and you get a Land Raider. Now, you can either make that into the Proteus, or what's the other mark I'm thinking of there? It's the Proteus or the Exploratora. Hang on, I've got it down in my list. There we go. It's the Proteus Exploratora. Explorator sounds better. There we go. That's probably it. Or it's the other type of that Land Raider, which is it just the Proteus? Do they just call it that and move on with their lives? Maybe. I'm desperately looking through my book at the moment. It's the Proteus Carrier. There we go. That's the 2 types. So it can make either, I assume, and that's what you're getting in the box set. So just fantastic. You're saving quite a bit of money. Depends on the currency that we're talking about here, but you're almost getting that Land Raider for free at that point with the money that you're saving. So that's pretty fantastic. if not, getting it nice and cheap, depending on where you're buying this. So that box set, super impressed with it. I think it's really good value for what we usually get out of GW. Now, on top of that, you're going to want to get some other units. Not too many. The first one I'm going to want to buy is a squad of 10 Cataphracti Terminators. Now, buying these guys retail or even from any store whatsoever, you probably don't need to. If you want to save even more money, there are so many people out there that have 10 Cataphracti lying around from their Age of Darkness box set that you can get them bulk cheap and save yourself even more money, getting them almost 50% off probably on the secondhand market. But there we have it. We're going to grab ourselves 10 Cataphracti. We're also going to buy a Leviathan Siege Dreadnought. Now, these do annoyingly come in either the close combat version or the long range version. It doesn't really matter which one you buy. I'd prefer to have a long range weapon and a close combat weapon on mine, but I didn't want to put two in the list and then mix and match. So if you've got a mate who happens to have bought a couple, got some extra weapons, you'll work it out. Worst case scenario, 3D print yourself the claw to make your life easier after buying the ranged weapon Leviathan. But I like the Leviathan in this list because for the amount you spend on it, it just costs a whole lot of points. It also delivers as well. I certainly think it's worth it. So Leviathan's a great addition to here. It really goes with that kind of heavy dreadnought theme. We've already got the Derodeo in there, so I think it's a great addition. So that is, so far, the Battle Group box set, the Cataphracti Terminators, a Leviathan Siege Dreadnought. On top of that, we're going to go and buy ourselves a Typhon Heavy Siege Tank. Now, these things, I think they're super underrated. As a Lord of War, look, most of the Lords of War are pretty trash, let's be honest, in 2nd edition. This one I think's pretty good. It comes in at around 400 points, and for that you get just a big giant cannon on the front, which blows stuff up pretty good. So for 400 points, once again, the dollar cost of this to the points is quite nice, and I think it's also a really fun large tank that you don't see that often on the table, but that you can really justify fitting in a 3,000 point list. So there we have it. Grab one of those while you're there. And the last thing we're going to buy is Griga Fellhand. So that is the Space Wolves special character, Praetor, Consul, whatever we want to call him there. Let's scroll down. Hang on, I'm just scrolling through as a look. Yeah, Griga Fellhand. Now that he is that Space Wolves special character that came in that box set so long ago, that when they were pitched against the Prospero, Burning of Prospero, box set that used to exist, and the special characters, Araman was one of them, and Griga's the other. He looks so good. He's such a good looking character. I like him more than any of the characters you can get off Forge World, and I wanted to get some jump pack troops in there, and I find that his pose is really well suited to sticking a jump pack on the back of him. So we're going to pick him up as well as the only character we're actually going to buy from this list. We're going to 3D print some others, but we'll get there soon. And that's it. Right, that is all we're going to buy for 3,000 points. And when I'm talking about the 3D printing, for the most part, except for a couple of characters, we're not 3D printing whole units. We're 3D printing bits and pieces. So that's it. That's all you need to get to 3,000 points is those units that I just talked about. Obviously, we've gone for bigger units, Leviathan Siege Dreadnoughts, the Typhon, we've got a Land Raider in there, we've got the Derodeo, so we're going big, right? But I think it's still going to perform in anything up to pretty high competitive games. So there we go. That's what we're buying. Next, I want to talk about some 3D printed bits. So as I said, if you're playing Horus Heresy, you need to be 3D printing or you need to be sourcing 3D printed parts. It's so hard to put together armies for this game without 3D printed bits. Just anything from, a good example, I wanted to turn my Alpha Legion, a special unit. Oh, here we go. Now I have to think of what they're called. So many names, people. It's the Seeker Squad, the special one. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I wanted to turn them. They're meant to go with Mark IV armor, essentially, the upgrade kits that you get from Forge World. But I wanted to turn them into Mark VI so that they fit with the rest of my army. Now, to do that was an absolute pain in the butt. I actually had to 3D print different arms that matched kind of the Mark VI style, were big enough, and at the same time didn't have the bits, the weird, awkward bits and pieces that came with the Mark 6 arms, so that I was able to use them on the upgrade kits. It was really difficult, honestly, to convert, and without a 3D printer, it would have been nigh impossible to achieve. So 3D printing little bits and pieces like that just makes such a difference, makes this hobby so much easier, really cuts down on cost and lets you do what you want to do. So to turn this Force and this Battle Group box into a Space Wolf Force, there's a bunch of things I want to grab. Now the first one of those is some sweet Space Wolf heads. There's so many options out there. The Volga Fenrica, the route in particular, are so well supported by so many amazing 3D artists, but the ones that I want to use, because I am leaning towards that kind of traitorous Space Wolf Force here, I really like these Space Wolves helmets by Marta Punk Girl. Okay, there's gonna be some interesting names flying your way tonight. So here we go. I think these are great. You get the real Viking sense from them. We've got some like real skull motifs going in there. I think they're very traitorous, very different, and I think these are going to look absolutely fantastic with that Mark III armor. So that's the first thing there. As you can see, most of the 3D designs that I've chosen tonight do cost some amount of money. There's so many free ones out there, so certainly if you're looking to save even more dollars or dollary dues, you can go for free printed files. I never mind throwing a few dollars here and there over to 3D print artists. Is that the right word? Sure. Because designers, 3D printed designers, 3D designers, I just think they're fantastic. I think the work they're doing out there is amazing. Throw them $6. It's going to absolutely make their day. And at the same time, you get yourself a really sweet design. So that's the heads that I want to use across the Force for all of the troops. Excuse me. At least for the Mark III armor people. The heads that I want to use for the Terminators are a little different. Now, I am going to be using these Cataphracti Terminators as counts as... what are they called? Counts as a Variger, a Wolf Guard. So something a little different. I'm not going to use the Forge World models, A, because they cost a fortune, B, because I think they look a little silly. So instead, I'm going to go with some really cool Deathsworn style Terminator heads. I think these look just amazing. They're called Deathsworn Terminating Helmets. So tricky to get around those GWIP searches. Once again, they're going to cost us $4 here. This is Australian dollars now that I've switched to, just all over the place with my currency, just for fun, keep you on your toes. Now, this is by Kimball the Dwarf, and we've got a few designs by the Dwarf in this video because the stuff this person's putting out is absolutely spectacular. But I thought these would go so cool. Look, will they fit in Cataphracti armor? I think so. They might need a little bit of trimming at the back. But either way, as I'm going for that overall kind of death cult, Deathsworn theme for this Force, I think these will look amazing and really make sure you're differentiating these Terminators so that people can understand that counts as those elite Space Wolf Terminators. So we're gonna chuck these heads on those Terminators, and at the same time, we're going to grab some axes. So these axes, both for the normal troops that I'm going to make into assault squads, but these will go just fine with the Terminators as well, I am sure. These are called the Runic Warrior Chain Axes. There's 24 variants that come in it, and these are going to be the weapons that we put on our squad. Once again, really brutal looking, which leans towards that trader piece there. It's going to cost us a mighty $3 to get our hands on as many of these axes as we want. I'm sure I don't need to mention the Mark 6 Close Combat pack upgrade kit that came from Forge World, and the cost difference if we tried to fit 20 Assault Marines with those instead of using something 3D printed. Let's not even go there. But these look really cool. Very Space Wolfy, obviously, very brutal and traitor looking, and these will work both for the Terminators and for the Assault Marines that I want to have in this Force. So what do we got so far? We've got some heads, both for the normal troops and for the Terminators. We've got some great looking chain axes. This kit here I've found really useful. There's not many great arm kits out there, at least that I've found for Horus Heresy miniatures, but these ones are great. The Exo Armor Close Combat Arms, you can switch between weapons. They come with a bunch of weapons as well that you can use. They're just going to make your life really easy. I'm pretty sure I've purchased these actually in the past. So we'll grab these to make sure we've got some good assault arms to use those axes with for our normal troops to turn them into assault marines. And of course, the last thing we need to turn them into assault marines is jump packs. Now, there are a couple of options here that I was looking at. There is these here, the Space Vikings jump packs. These look so cool. Now, they're not traditionally the style of jump pack that you would see on a Mark III Marine. Of course, if we're later in the Heresy where things are turning traitor all over the place, you can do what you want. They're mixing and matching. So I don't know if I'd go down this route just because I think they look absolutely fantastic, or if I'd go something a little Mark III traditional and go with something like this. This is the retro fanny packs for man's best friend. A little more creative on the naming here. These are really cool, and there's a whole bunch of different, this is Kimball the Dwarf again, a whole bunch of different styles of these more Mark III type jump pack. And I think this is used for Mark V as well, this style of jump pack. Possibly, I'm not sure if Mark II or not, maybe. But this is your more traditional kind of Heresy style. And these are, once again, very Space Wolf themed. A bunch of them came with, here you can see, shields, fur, all kinds of cool chains, all kind of cool stuff hanging off them that I think would make those assault marines, the assault squads within a Space Wolf force, look super cool. Now, there's not too much more we need. I wanted to have combat shields with these Space Wolves, and just in case you decide that instead of Assault Marines, which is what I've gone for this force, to do something a little bit different, you want to go with the more traditional Grey Slayer, Grey Stalker situation. These shields were probably the favorite that I found, and these would look fantastic on all of those Marines, either as combat shields for the Assault Squads, or as combat shields for Grey Stalkers and Grey Slayers. So this is Shield of Space Vikings by, oh, here we go, this name, Kowalik Sebastian. Yep, sure, that'll do. This looked really good, and I'm sure 3D printed that would look just as fantastic as it does there. So we've got shields, we've got weapons, we've got Assault Marine packs, jump packs. What else? We've got heads. A little bit of flavor here and there. I found these little guys, which I quite like. The Space Vikings accessories, they're free, so the price is right. Some drinking horns there and some little daggers. I really liked these, so I'd be grabbing these, 3D printing these out and sticking them all over my Marines as well. It's all about that flavor, people. And what Forge World produces, it just doesn't get me quite there. And that's what this is all about. It's just taking them to the next level. Some really cool but cheap ways of making your army super unique. So that is all the bits and pieces that I wanted to talk about. Now, my army list does have 3 headquarters options. We've only really looked at one so far. So then I started searching online for some cool characters. Because while I don't like to 3D print whole armies, frankly, I find it a giant pain to do so. Really cool characters here and there, I think, are worth it. So I wanted to include a Speaker of the Dead and also a Warmonger console to give my Variger Wolfguard Terminators the ability to deep strike. So for the Speaker of the Dead, I thought this model was really cool. Here we go. It is the Deathsworn Praetor in Mark III armor. This is by Gatteroid. Awesome. The guy on the left with the double-handed axe there, I think he's just absolutely fantastic. Chuck a jump pack on the back of him, and he's going to look super menacing, super Speaker of the Deady. Yeah, okay. I'd use the, you can see there on the right, the Deathsworn style helmet. I'd chuck that on him as opposed to the bare head, and I think this is a fantastic miniature. I wouldn't use the dead and beheaded Space Marine on the floor there. I'd put a tactical rock as opposed to a tactical corpse. But yeah, I think this guy's great. Because 3D printed characters can sometimes look a little awkward. Not this guy. I think this guy looks really cool and super fits the theme of the army that I'm going for here. So that is going to be my Speaker of the Dead. And then finally, the last thing we're going to grab for 3D printing here is Ragnar Whitemane, once again by Kimball the Dwarf, Terminating Runelord. Fantastic. This absolutely gives me just what I want. Is he in Cataphracti armor? Look, technically no, but you know, the armor, it's so kind of runic and artificid. That's a word. That we can do whatever we want here. This is fine. He's got that really cool axe in his left hand there. Once again, keeping that Deathsworn kind of theme going with the wolf skull helmet. And he just looks super menacing. He just looks awesome. So I'd have this guy as my deep striking console, the Warmonger, which is a Legacies unit. And I think he'll do an amazing job. And that really finalizes the 3D printed pieces there. So we've looked at what we're buying, we've looked at what we've 3D printed, we're going to get all of that together, and that is going to give us our 3,000 point army. So I thought I'd go through a bit of an army list on what this looks like, just to give people an idea of how little money you have to spend to get up to 3,000 points, and then what that looks like. So once again, we're talking about, even with all of those 3D printed costs, if you're buying all of the files that I just went through, you're still coming under $500 American, which is just fantastic. Once again, assuming the 20% discount from your local store. But you know what? If I can get it in Australia, that 20% discount at online stores, so can you over in America or the UK. I'm absolutely sure. I've seen stores that do both. So let's get into this list. So headquarters, a Jarl, a Praetor with jump pack, that is Grieger Fellhand there. I've given him a great Frostblade. He's obviously got more of a Lightning Claw that he's armed with. I'm sure you could count that as great Frostblade and no one would get too upset, but a bit of conversion work with so many different 3D printed great Frostblades and runic style weapons and Space Wolf style weapons would be absolutely fine as well. I've got the Crownbreaker Warlord trait here just for funsies. In regards to playing this army on the tabletop, I'd be going for what's the name? It's not the Pale Hunters. It's the Bloodied Claw is what I'd be running this army as, because in the Pale Hunters, you can only have one heavy support choice, whereas the Bloody Claw, as many heavy supports as you want, and they're going to hit real hard, and it once again suits that brutal, slightly traitorous nature. So that's what I'm going to use as my Jarl. I'm going to give him a jump pack and put him with one of the units of my assault squads that I'll get into later. On top of that, for headquarters, I'm going with a Speaker of the Dead. It's just an amazing unit. I'd never build a 6th Legion force without one. Super simple, jump pack, and he comes with a Mastercrafted Power Maul. So just keep it going. That's what we're doing. That was one of those 3D printed miniatures. Finally, for the headquarters, we're going to upgrade one of our Centurions to a Warmonger Consul. This is such an important unit and just opens up so many other units within the game that otherwise would have serious mobility issues or would have to rely on a Land Raider. This makes them super playable, especially bigger units as well. And we'll get to how big that unit's going to be. So he's going to grab a great Frostblade, yep, there we go. And he's going to run, obviously, with the Varriger Wolfguard Terminator Squad, which is up next in our Elite section. Now, I went for 10 of these bad boys. We obviously paid for the 10 Cataphractii Terminators, whether we bought them retail or we got them secondhand for peanuts off someone with an Age of Darkness box set that doesn't need them. We've converted them a little with our Wolf Skull helms that we've 3D printed. We've given them some really cool looking runic axes, those not quite power looking axes, but actually they look like the actual miniatures themselves, those chain axes. So that fits just beautifully. And we're going to run 10 of them. Now, some people may think that 10 of these bad boys is overkill. I assure you, in 3,000 points, it is not. What it does is just give you a super reliable, hard to move unit that you can bring down absolutely anywhere you want. And will always reliably kill whatever you send them into or whatever they get charged by with that counterattack. So that's why we're going with these guys. Having a unit that you can just absolutely rely on every single game like this in a 3,000 point list is, I think, super important, and I'm happy to pay 500 points for it. So that is the only entry in the Elite slot. We then move into troops. So as I've said before, I'm going with a couple of assault squads, 10. I'd rather these be 15 each, but I wanted to bring a third unit. But look, 10, it'll have to do. I've given them some power axes, some combat shields. You've got the sergeants in there. I'm not sure if the new Mark III unit comes with lightning claws or power fists. So once again, some 3D printing will solve that problem for you with no issues. But these could just as easily, as I said before, be Grey Stalkers, Grey Slayers. It'd come to about the same points, so that's fine. Do what you want to do, but I wanted to see some jump packs on some Space Wolves, so here we are. Lastly, we're going to take advantage of those special weapons in the box set, the Battle Group box set. So we're going to run a Legion Tactical Support Squad of 10 with 10 Volkite Calibers, which are my favorite weapon out of that special weapon selection. Now, once again, I'm not sure if you get 10 of each of them in the box set, or they've just done 5 of each just to mess with us. If it is 5 of each, then I'd probably go 5 Volkite Calibers and then 5 probably plasma guns or melter guns, whichever way you prefer to swing. And then just run that squad as 2 squads instead if you have to. Moving on, we get into fast. Now, right, okay. Firstly, we can see there's only 2 line units, right? Not super competitive from that perspective, but we're here to have fun, people. We're here to have fun and build a ridiculous army for as cheap as we possibly can. So that's why we're going down that route. Next up, I decided to spoil us a little. This isn't the most efficient points to cost unit, but we're going to throw in a Legion Skyhunter Squadron. We've got so much Deep Strike going on already that I thought having another one would be kind of sweet, but also to provide some heavy firepower and be maneuverable and just be a bit of fun. And you can just do some cool conversion stuff with these guys, with the stuff that we're already 3D printing. So a Legion Skyhunter Squadron, just 3 of them with some Volkite Culverins, and just throw them around the table, doing whatever you want. Next up is heavy support. Oh, and there we go. I didn't mention them. That's lucky. Lucky I came back to that one. That is the last thing we are going to purchase. Actually, that is included in the cost, I assure you. I did not mention it before when we were talking about what we're going to buy, but we do also have to buy a Legion Skyhunter Squadron. There we go. Got there. Yes. Picked up my mistake. All right, moving into heavy sport. So we've got the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought that I talked about before. I would like to give it a Cyclonic Melter Lance and a Siege Claw. If you do have to go down either the ranged or the close combat option, both have, and just that option, right? Because of the way the box sets come and you don't want to 3D print, or you don't have access to the others, and I certainly wouldn't want to be buying one of those weapon sets for the amount they cost. I don't know whether I'd go down the close combat option or the shooting option. Probably to theme with this army, I'd go down the close combat option and just lumber them towards the enemy, firing off phosphex anyway, just for funsies, and getting in combat as soon as possible. They can't run though, so it doesn't feel fabulous. I'd much rather have a shooting weapon on there, but it is what it is. We're here for bargains, people. Next up, the Derodeo Dreadnought that comes in the box set. I think it's a wonderful unit. I'd keep it with the autocannon batteries there as opposed to the plasma option. The las cannon option is probably the better one here, but I don't believe it comes with the plastic kit. I don't think that's an option. So it's going to have to be the autocannons. Next up, the Land Raider. I want my tactical support squad, the 10 dudes with the Volkites, to go in this Land Raider, so I'm not going to make it the carrier version. I'm going to make it the explorator version. Yep, there we go. I think I've said it right that time. Because of the cool ability it has to mess with your enemy's reserves, and the more important ability it has to let you reroll your reserve rolls. I think that's super important for this army, noting that you've got 600 to maybe 1,200 points of your army sitting in deep strike. I think this is really important. So that's how I'd run it. I also just think it looks super cool. It's got such a old school kind of second ed heresy vibe to it that I love it. And I want an excuse to run that tank. Lastly, finally, it's that Legion Typhon that we talked about. Just a big boy with a big cannon on the front, just to cause absolute mayhem and be terrifying for your opponent. And just to see them on the table. We just don't see enough of them. Let's get them out there. And that's it, right? So that brings us to 2,985 points, I think. Yeah, I did a lot of chopping and changing, so hopefully I got those points right. There's been a lot to talk about. I did forget about the jetpacks for a while there, but here we are. So for $476 US, you get yourself and a little 3D printing. So that's going to cost you some resin, it's going to cost you some time, and it's going to cost you some money for files there. But still, even with all of that considered, for under $500 US, you are getting yourself a 3,000 point Heresy army. If that's not some good wargaming, all enabled by that new battle group, then I don't know what is. I think that's fantastic. Now, it should be noted that that new battle group, I'm pretty sure it's only around for a limited time. So if you want to get that deal, you want to get your hands on it, I recommend you do so very soon. It's up for pre-order right now. If you don't pre-order it, I don't think you'll get your hands on it. So please, people, save yourself some money, get yourself a free Land Raider, go out, pre-order that box, and build some super sweet looking Mark III Heresy armies. That's it. That's all I have to talk about today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Let me know what you're planning on doing with in the comments with your battle group box, whether it's Space Wolves, another Legion, what you're planning for those Mark III boys in that box, new armies. I came so close to buying one. I'm so tempted. I still might. We'll wait and see. But most importantly, thanks for watching, make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for heresy.